We go to Minnesota.
No, God!
Just when you thought Nick, don't call me Shirley, well, his name is Shirley,
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
was in his battle alone exposing Minnesota fraud, in comes the federal government and cuts off all child care payments to the state.
How did we get here?
I'm Jasper Gonzo, and this, one, it's about in time.
Yes! Yes!
Two, Tampon Tim said he's been fighting fraud in that state even before Nick Shirley was born.
A bullshit?
And if you believe that,
Gotten stupid and retarded.
what is what's next? What's up, everyone? Jasper Gonzo, what's next? Your daily dose, common sense, facts, and salt. Hope you guys are feeling good today on this Wednesday. Of course, it is New Year's Eve. You know, later on tonight, you get together with family, friends, food, you know, break in the new year. Don't drink and drive, you know, be safe, don't be stupid, you know, keep it at home if you can. But anyway, not here to talk about that. We go to Minnesota, where Nick, don't call me Shirley, well, his name is Shirley, has been on a one-man crusade in wreaking havoc in that state, especially when it comes to Somali fraud to the tune of billions under Tampon Tim's watch. Just when you thought that was just going to be him alone, in comes the federal government and cuts off all child care payments to the state. Well, it's about in time. Well, if you thought it was over, Tampon Tim has got something to say, but we'll leave that on the back end. And here we go. This comes out of Breitbart. Donald Trump, deputies freeze child care payments to Minnesota amid alleged Somali fraud. President Donald Trump's deputies are freezing federal payments to child care businesses in Minnesota amid growing evidence of mass fraud by Somali-owned daycare centers who have no children in them. Well, come on. What do you expect? Quote, "We're committed to holding bad actors accountable regardless of rank or office," said on an X video from Jim O'Neill, Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. "Anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted." The Minnesota freeze is also intended to pressure other states to check in for fraud in their federally funded services, especially when ethnic enclaves created by long-standing federal policy on mass migration. The freeze is politically powerful because it will force the state's legitimate operators to demand state investigators into apparently massive fraud by Somali operators. The fraud is eventually hidden by the imported, self-serving, clannish Somali culture of amoral familiarism, which is very different than U.S.-style citizenship, which emphasizes reciprocal rights and duty shared society. The fraud has been quietly described as many news outlets over the past few years. However, Democrats suppressed public recognition of mass fraud by their political allies until last week, when independent journalist Nick, don't call me Shirley, posted a series of man-on-the-street videos exposing the child care fraud in empty child care centers. This is Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill on X.
Hello, I'm HHS Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill. I'm here with Assistant Secretary Alex Adams. Alex oversees the Administration for Children and Families. Intrepid journalists have made shocking and credible allegations of extensive fraud in Minnesota's child care programs.
Facts.
We believe the state of Minnesota has allowed scammers and fake daycares to siphon millions of taxpayer dollars over the past decade.
Billions!
My office, ACF, provides Minnesota $185 million in child care funds each year. That money should be helping 19,000 American children, including toddlers and infants. Any dollar stolen by fraudsters is stolen from those children. Yesterday, I spoke directly with the director of the Minnesota Child Care Services Office. She could not tell me with confidence whether those allegations of fraud are isolated or whether there's fraud stretching statewide.
Today, we have taken 3 direct actions against the blatant fraud that seems to be rampant in Minnesota. First, I have activated our Defend the Spend system for all ACF child care payments across America. Starting today, we require a justification, receipt, or photo evidence before we make a payment.
Now, let me stop that right there. So now you just decided to activate this. What happened during the Trump's administration the first time around? What happened in other administrations? And of course, you can't explain what goes on in other administrations. You can only, account for yourself. But still, this has been going on quite a few years now. This is not the first time. This is not the first exposure, but this is the first time this has been widely exposed by just a guy who does YouTube videos. Wow.
Second, I've just signed and sent a demand letter to Governor Walz. I required a full 360 review of these centers.
Good luck with that. With Tampon Tim, good luck with that.
This includes attendance records, licenses, complaints, investigations, and inspections.
And third, we've launched a dedicated fraud reporting hotline and email address at childcare.gov. Whether you're a parent, a provider, a member of the public, we want to hear from you. Let me be crystal clear. ACF expects every state to uphold the highest standards of oversight, monitoring, and accountability for federal dollars. Minnesota is no exception.
We're committed to holding bad actors accountable. Regardless of rank or office, anyone who's involved in perpetrating this fraud against the American people should expect to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Produced by...
Interesting. But you know who's really mad? This guy, Tampon Tim himself. We go to Breitbart. Tim Walz's office claims he's worked for years to stop fraud as investigators heat up. And who is this Nick Shirley? Of course, there he is, the Tampon Tim himself, the gay governor of Minnesota. A video exposing childcare centers in Minnesota that are allegedly involved in fraud has caused leftist Tim Walz's officials to go on the defense. A spokesperson for the office defended him and claimed the governor has long worked to stop fraud, of course, according to Fox News. Quote, the governor has worked for years to crack down on fraud and asked state legislatures for more authority to take aggressive action. He has strengthened his oversight, including launching investigators into specific facilities, one of them which is already closed, the official said, adding that Walz hired an outside firm to audit payments to high-risk programs, shut down housing stabilization services programs entirely, announce a new statewide program integrity director, and support criminal prosecutions. In a social media post on December 18th, the governor said, we will not tolerate fraud, and we will continue to work with our federal partners to ensure fraud is stopped and fraudsters are caught. You get them, Tim. However, the news comes as citizen journalist Nick, don't call me Shirley, reports on the issue in Minnesota, claiming that he and his team has uncovered massive amount of fraud into the tune of billions. Breitbart News reported. The outlet noted that some other places Shirley has visited where alleged fraud occurred, where daycare centers reportedly received millions of federal aid, but surprisingly had no kids in the facilities. The fact of the matter is that it's about in time the feds step in. So it took a YouTuber to expose this fraud into the tune of billions. And what was local media doing in Minnesota? I'm just asking. I mean, if you guys are credible journalists, then you guys should have been blowing the doors open. You know, the last Tim Walz is going for a third term as governor. So for the last 8 years, what have you guys been doing? Sitting on your fucking hands? That's what you were doing. That's where you were basically told by Tim Walz's administration that, you know what, you need to tamp down the stories. You know, there's a little bit of fraud going on, but for the most part, it's okay. So here comes Shirley saying, you know what, I'm going to blow the fucking doors open on this damn thing and expose these clowns for the fraudster clowns that they are. So again, it took a YouTuber for the federal government to wake up and to get involved. Well, it's about damn time, because better late than never. But anyway, so when you have Tim Tampon himself come out and said, I've been doing this for years. Look what I've done. Nick Shirley, fuck you. Got caught with his pants down. Well, he's, from what I've heard, he likes doing it anyway. But anyway, so good for the federal government to finally step in and do a full-blown investigation on this and to cut people off where they need to be cut off. But already, the toothpaste is out of the tube already. $18 billion. $18 billion have been flushed down the proverbial toilet. And it took Nick Shirley to expose this. Wow. Anyway, with that being said, I'm Jazz Borganzo. This is what's next. Want to see more like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share, subscribe to it. Hit that notification bell so you guys never miss a thing. Continue spreading word about the show. Appreciate you guys watching as always. And we'll see you next time. Peace.